Ma tovu, ma tovu, ma tovu ohanecha Yaakov.
Mishkanetecha Yisrael.
Mishkanetecha Yisrael. V'ani brachastecha. Avo beitecha. Eshtachave Elecha kochecha beiratecha Elecha kochecha beiratecha yiratecha Adonai ahavti miyod betecha Omkom mishkan kavodecha Vani estachave vechra Livnei Adonai Osim Bani tfilati Lecha Adonai Es ratzon Elohim Berov chasdecha Haneni bemet Yishecha bemet Yishecha.
Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach. On behalf of Bet David Santon, Bet Menorah, Pretoria, and Bet David in Durban, I welcome everyone to this Erev Shabbat, Yom Rishon, and Shel Pesach service. Whether you're watching online or in our synagogue, we hope that you will find the service meaningful and enriching. Please note that our recordings from past Shabbat and festival services are available to be viewed online on YouTube, and the Shabbat and Yom Tov candles will be lit tonight by Fiona Capstick. I wish everyone Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach.
In the spirit of our ancient tradition, which unites and sanctifies the house of Israel in all lands and ages, we welcome the Shabbat and the festival of Pesach by kindling these lights. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat v'shel Yom Tov.
Amen.
Amen.
Blessed are you, eternal our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat and this festival. May these festival lights open our eyes to the joys in life, beauty that delights the eye, freedom to be ourselves, the knowledge of Torah that shapes our moral being, the heritage of celebration that unites us, as a people. Blessed are you, eternal our God, sovereign of the universe, for giving us life, sustaining us, and enabling us to reach this season.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shechianu v'kiyamanu, v'higianu lazman hazeh. Amen.
Thank you. We now turn to page 390 in the Mishkan Filah for the recitation of the special psalm for Shabbat. This is on top of the top of page 390. Sorry, before that, 388 for Pesach. We're going to read the first paragraph there, and I'd like you to join me in reading of that. This is for the first day of Pesach, 388. We are slaves because freedom means more than broken chains. Where there is poverty and hunger and homelessness, there is no freedom. Where there is prejudice and bigotry and discrimination, there is no freedom. Where there is violence and torture and war, there is no freedom. And where each of us is less than he or she might be, we are not free, not yet. Top of page 390.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך, חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות, בלילות, עלי עשור ועלי נעבר, עלי היגיון בכינור, בכינור. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון.
כי שימחתני,
שימחתני אדוני בפועלך, בפועלך.
במעשה
ידיך רנן, רנן. מה גדלו מעשיך אדוני, מאוד עמקו מחשבותיך, מחשבותיך. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון.
The righteous bloom like a date palm, they thrive like a cedar in Lebanon. Planted in the Eternal One's house, they flourish in our God's courts. In old age, they still produce fruit and are full of sap and freshness, attesting that God is upright, my rock, and my rock in whom there is no wrong. We now turn to page 391. Adonai malach geut lavesh, lavesh Adonai oz v'itazar, avtikon tevel baltimot, nachon kisacha me'az, ve'elam ata. Nasu norot tachya, nasu norot Adonai, nasu norot tachya, nasu norot tachya, mikolot mayim rabim, adirim mishberei yam.
Mikolot mayim, mayim rabim, adirim, adirim.
turn to page 392, and the choir are going to lead us through the Chatzi Kaddish. Please stand.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה. אמן. בעלמא יברך יראתי וימליך מלכותי. בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל. בגלה בזמן קריב וימרו. אמן. יהי שמירה במבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר יתעלה ויתעלה שמי לקודשו ריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה בשירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמא ויאמרו אמן. Nein, 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 nein. Nein, 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 nein. Nein, 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 nein. Nein, 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 nein. Nein, 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 nein. Nein, 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 nein. Nein, 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 nein. Nein, 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 nein,
We now turn to page 396. Please be seated. I'd just like to repeat something I mentioned last week because I think it's so germane. There's a style of music in Hasidic and in religious tradition, Jewish tradition of probably in the last 200 years, of the nigun. It's a wordless song like la 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 or oi oi oi, whatever it is. And the idea behind that is everybody can join in. And a story is told about a small town, the story I mentioned just about a week ago. The story is told about a small town in which they didn't have a rabbi. We know the experience. They didn't have a rabbi for a long time. And people had questions, people had problems they wanted to discuss with a wise rabbi, and they just didn't have that. And then they heard the rabbi was coming to town. Everybody was very, very excited because they had all these questions that they wanted to ask, all these things that they wanted to find out, get some direction on. And as the rabbi, everybody gathered in the synagogue, and the rabbi was there, and I think people were shy or afraid to talk out loud and ask real questions. And the rabbi very softly started singing a nigun, a wordless melody. And as he started singing first on his own, eventually it seemed to catch on among the congregants, and they started singing as well. Not in a while, there was lustily singing going on in the synagogue. And when it carried on for quite a long time, and when it was all over, and everybody had silenced themselves, and singing was over, the rabbi looked out at the people and said, "Answered all your questions?" And he probably had. Top of page 396. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chochma potech sharim, ובתבונה משנה עתים, ומחליף את הזמנים, ומסדר את הכוכבים, במשמרותיהם ברקיע כרצונו. בורא יום ולילה, you are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness away from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvot is your name, ever-living God. May you reign over us into eternity. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'ma'ariv aravim. On the top of page 397, there's a special statement there for Pesach. Go forth and learn. It is easier to oppress than to be free. Until all of us are free, none of us is free. We now turn to page 398 for the Ahavat Olam.
Ahavat Olam, Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amecha Ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chokim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta, Otanu limadeta.
Al ken Adonai Eloheinu
Beshoch veinu. Nasiach bechokecha v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha u'v'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed ki hem chayenu le'orech yameinu u'bahem negei yomam v'layla yomam v'layla yomam v'layla ve'avatecha al tasir mimenu, al tasir mimenu le'olamim, le'olamim, le'olamim.
Remove your love from us. Blessed are you, Eternal One, who loves your people Israel. Top of page 399, there's a special insert for Pesach. Let's read that together. Enlighten our eyes to the divine lessons of our tradition. Attach our hearts to the imperatives of our faith. Let our minds be one to love and venerate all that is good, high, and holy. We now turn to a key meditation in the Siddur, and that is the Shema. And please feel free to stand if that is your custom. And we'll say the Shema together, led by the choir.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad
top of page 402, we recite the Shema together. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantan levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'aderech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha ukashartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot beinenecha uchetaftam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha. Bottom of page 403. Lema'an tizguru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kadoshim le'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem Emet. We now turn to page 406 for the Micha Mocha. Please be seated.
Micha mocha ba'elim Adonai, Micha mocha nedar b'kodesh, Nora tehilot osef ele, Nora tehilot osef ele, Malchutcha ra'u banecha, Pokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, Zeli anu ve'amru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed.
The Eternal One shall reign forever and ever. Thus it is said, God redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. We now turn to page 408 for the Hashkivenu. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'amidenu malkeinu l'chaim, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. God, grant us that we lie down in peace and rise up in peace, our sovereign, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel, for your name's sake. Be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadows of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and depression. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, O God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, O God, are gracious and merciful. Baruch atah Adonai haporei sukat shalom aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael v'al Yerushalayim. This particular meditation is also said before you go to sleep at night. It's a way of calming yourself down, having faith in the day to come, and reflecting on what's been before you. But the overriding theme is, let's have peace as we sleep. And let us wake up to peace as well. We now turn to page 410 for Vishamru.
V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם, ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, כי וידבר משה את מועדי אדוני אל בני ישראל, ישראל.
אל בני ישראל.
אל בני ישראל, אל בני ישראל, ישראל.
Now we turn to page 468, and we're going to be standing for the filah. Filah means meditation, and this is a guided meditation, and we start this here. They appear in all of the services, and it's called the meditation, the filah, because it's absolutely central and encapsulates so much of what we're trying to focus on at this time. And the choir will lead us through.
Adonai Shabbat tiftachu fi teilatecha. Adonai Shabbat tiftachu fi teilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu ve'Elohei Imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah.
האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל,
וזוכר חסדי
אבות ואימהות,
ומביא גאולה
לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה.
מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה.
On the top of page 473, let's read together. Your might, O God, renews the earth. With the dew of light and blessing, let the earth be illuminated and blessed. With the dew of joy and delight, let the earth rejoice and sing out. With the dew of life and well-being, let the earth be revived and improved. With the dew of redemption, let the earth be redeemed. We now turn to Baruch Atah Adonai B'chayei Hakol. Top of page 474. Atah Kadosh v'Shimcha Kadosh u'Kadoshim b'chol yom ya'alu chasela. You are holy and your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Baruch Atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. We turn now to page 478. אתה בחרתנו מכל העמים, אהבת אותנו ורצית בנו, רוממן מכל הלשונות, וקידשתנו במצוותיך וקרבתנו מלכנו לעבודתך, ושמך הגדול והקדוש עלינו קראת. You have chosen us in love and favor by making us holy through your mitzvot and drawing us close to your service. And through your great and holy name, we become known in all the earth. In your love, eternal our God, you have given us Shabbatot of rest and feasts of gladness and seasons of joy, and this festival day of Pesach, the season of our freedom, to unite in worship and to recall the exodus from Israel. Top of page 480. Eloheinu v'lehei avotenu ya'aleh v'yavo v'yizacher v'zichronenu v'zichron kol amcha beit Yisrael lefanecha l'tova u'lechen u'lechesed u'rachamim l'chayim u'shalom b'yom chag ha-pesach hazeh, chag ha-matzot hazeh. Zochrenu Adonai leheinu bo l'tova
Amen.
Fokdenu bo livracha
Amen.
v'osheinu bo l'chayim.
Amen.
Remember us this day for well-being. Bless this day with your nearness. This day help us to a fuller life. Now in the middle of page 482, bestow on us the blessing of your holy festivals, and may we so celebrate them as to be worthy of your blessing. Our God and God of our ancestors, find favor in our Shabbat rest, and make us holy with your mitzvot. Let your Torah be our way of life. May our rest on this day be pleasing in your sight. Satisfy us with your goodness, gladden us with your salvation, and purify our hearts to serve you in truth.
ותהל ליבנו, ותהל ליבנו, ותהל ליבנו לעבדך באמת. ותהל ליבנו, ותהל ליבנו, ותהל ליבנו לעבדך באמת. דה 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 אוי! דה 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 ותהל ליבנו, ותהל ליבנו, ותהל ליבנו לעבדך באמת. ותהל ליבנו, ותהל ליבנו, ותהל ליבנו לעבדך באמת.
נתקלנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה ורצון בשמחה וששון ביום שבת ומועדי קודשך, וישמחו בך ישראל מקדשי שמך. Baruch atah Adonai makadesh HaShabbat v'Yisrael v'hazmanim. We turn now to page 487, and we're going to read the poem on the left-hand side together, please. I thank you, God, for most this amazing day, for the leaping greenly spirits of trees, a blue true dream of sky, and for everything which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes. I who have died and am alive again today, and this is the sun's birthday. This is the birthday of life and love and wings, and of the gay, great, happening, illimitably earth. How should tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, breathing, any lifted from the know of all nothing, human merely being, doubt unimaginable you? Now the ears of my ears awake, and now the eyes of my eyes open. Baruch atah Adonai, atov shimcha, l'cha na'eh lehodot. Top of page 488. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim L'olam.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim L'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha
We now turn to page 492. You can be seated for the silent meditation. Here's the point: silent prayer. This is probably the first time so far we've done any serious praying. Anything that you want to pray about, be thankful for, express anything you wish, this is the time to do it. If you haven't got anything particularly that comes to mind, there's always beautiful texts around on page 493 and on 492.
Ose shalom bimromav, uyase shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru, ve'imeru. Shalom bimromav, uyase shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru, ve'imeru, amen. Shalom, shalom bimromav, uyase shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru, ve'imeru, amen.
I thought it would be more appropriate, if I'm doing a double act, to at least do the sermonic part from over here. I'd like to share with you a couple of ideas that relate to the festival we're starting this evening. I've for a long time been a strong proponent of this idea of personalizing your Judaism. I'd like to say this is an original thought, but it really isn't. The great Hasidic Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, who lived in the 18th century, he talked all the time about taking your Judaism and making it your own. His idea was very much like taking fresh wine, new wine, and pouring it into old bottles, trying to find meaning and personal meaning in what you're doing, so it doesn't become rote, it doesn't become something which relates to them, but relates to where we are. I think that progressive Judaism is a strong attempt to do exactly that, to bring Judaism back to people that becomes more and more meaningful to them. And in the spirit of that, I'd like to share with you some of the things you'll see in the Pesach Seder this evening and where they all come from. So let's take the first one. Probably the first thing you're going to be doing if you follow the 15 points in the Haggadah, the first one is to dip some parsley into salt water. The parsley is green. It's fecundity. It's spring. Good things are ahead of us. And the point of dipping the green, the prospect of a wonderful new future in salt water is to remind us that there's no such thing as an overnight success. Even when you can see something which is very exciting that you're going for, understand it doesn't happen quickly. In my environment, there's a lot of talk about overnight successes in business. And people are quite sure, we all know it takes 10 years to build a great business, but surely there's some people who can't get it quickly. The reality is nobody gets it quickly. And nobody goes through business, creating great businesses or great life easily. It's only really been since about 2015 that CEOs, entrepreneurs, have been talking about the journey, the ups, the downs, the horror, the fear, the elation, and then more fear. When we're going towards something new, as exciting as it might be, we dip our parsley in salt water to remind us that it doesn't happen easily. That's just how it works. All these ideas are going to fit together and you'll see what they mean. The word Mitzrayim is the term that we use in Hebrew for Egypt. The name Egypt actually is Greek. Egyptos, they came up with that name for Egypt originally. In Arabic, it's Mizr. The idea about Mitzrayim, the Hebrew word Mitzrayim, means constriction. A Meitzar is a boundary. When you feel bound, locked in, constrained, then that is your Mitzrayim. In the Haggadah tonight, you'll read, it says, in every generation, a person is obliged to see himself as if he had left Egypt. As if he had left Egypt. This is not only for your ancestors, this is for us as well. We left Egypt. Then you ask yourself, well, what Egypt? I visited Egypt very quickly, and I left it rather quickly as well. There's nothing to it anymore. So what are they talking about? When we talk about leaving Egypt, we're talking about leaving those things which constrict us, those things which bind us and are locking in our lives. And I recall my brother-in-law was a rabbi in Cape Town. His Pesach Seders always spoke about apartheid. That was the dominant theme. The liberation is now. The political liberation, which he was very concerned with. But we can take it another level as well. Every year, we want to liberate ourselves from our own Mitzrayim. What I like doing is asking people privately to identify for themselves, what is your Mitzrayim this year? What is your Mitzrayim this year? What is it that you wish to leave this year? And it could be a whole bunch of things. It could be a punishing relationship. It could be a workplace. It could be a business project that's going nowhere, and you keep digging and the hole just gets deeper. You want to break habits that are holding you back. You want to get out of debt. What's your Mitzrayim this year? What is your Mitzrayim? And I like people to focus on what their Mitzrayim is this year that they're going to worry about trying to get out of. And so there you are thinking of your Mitzrayim. And what is particularly important about understanding that you have something to work with when you go through the rest of the Pesach Seder. One of the other symbols you'll see on the Pesach plates, you have matzah, you have karpas, you have all those different things. One of them is the maror, bitter herb. And it's quite important that we actually eat the bitter herb. And the idea of the bitter herb is to remind ourselves that if we had that the place we want to leave was bitter and unpleasant. There's a book by Henry Cloud called Necessary Endings. It's a book for business people and for everyone really, on why we have to end. We have to end things. And very, very often we don't like ending things and we choose not to end things because we're used to them. We're okay. Do you enjoy it? Not at all. Are you suffering? Absolutely. But I still don't end it. And he talks about how we need to prune and clean out the parts of our lives. And this, I think, is almost a Pesach text. It says in the Haggadah, or in fact in the Torah, it says, "Would that we had died by the hand of the Lord in Egypt, when we sat by the meat pots and ate bread to our fill." They were dreaming. When you think back on Egypt, these were slaves. They were given the cheapest possible food just to keep them alive so they could work for another day. But what was their memory? Their memory was of grandeur. We had so much food, and here we are in the desert, and we're going to starve to death. We eat the maror to remind ourselves how bitter and unpleasant that place is that you want to leave. We need to remind ourselves of why we want to leave our Mitzrayims. Our Mitzrayims are bitter and unpleasant. Now, the problem with if we only celebrated one night of Pesach, as we do in the diaspora, we do in Israel and in the progressive movement, you'd have one night to think about this and then it's all over. That's far too fast. It doesn't happen that quickly. If you want to leave your Mitzrayim, it takes a little longer. And so what we do is we have matzah, which we eat instead of bread, for the full 7 days. The idea about this is that matzah, the difference between matzah and bread is that there's been no fermentation process. Sourdough, between 4 and 24 hours, it ferments enough to rise and become a loaf. If you want to do it quickly, you take a little cube of yeast and you pop it into your flour and water, and it puffs up into bread. This idea of puffing up into something is seen as an image for the ego. Egos are a real problem, because if they're too small, you give away the farm, and if it's too big, you think you can take other people's farms. We need to get our ego into shape. And what's the relevance to that and leaving Mitzrayim? I recall one of my colleagues was asked by an insurance company to run a course for their staff, because the staff in this company, the salespeople in the company, were always looking for money, not from outside, from the company. Advances on commissions, loans, and they wanted to do something about it, so they asked Nigel to come in and do a course for them on money management. And he wisely said to them, if you were coming to the course, you have to come with your partner, husband, wife, life partner, whatever it is. You have to come with your partner. What came out in the course, very, very vividly, he said, was that these people said, we are insurance salespeople. We're supposed to be rich. I can't drive an ordinary car. I have to drive a BMW. I can't live in an ordinary neighborhood. I have to live in a really nice house. I have to send my kids to, I have to. And at the end of the day, they were just deeper and deeper and deeper in debt. If their Mitzrayim was to get out of debt, until they get the ego straight, until they get the ego down to the correct size, they're never going to get out. You never ever get out of your Egypt unless your ego is at the right state. And the purpose of the matzah is to remind us that you really need to get your ego correct before you're able, either too big, too small, but you've got to get your ego correct before you can leave your Mitzrayim. So as opposed to having the one night thinking about what you're going to do, you think about what you're going to do on one night, and for the next 7 days, we eat matzah, which is bread, egoless bread. We now continue with the service on page, this side,
386.
Sorry?
386.
386, please. And we're going to have...
You're doing the
Me?
kiddush.
We're going to have me say the Kiddush. Please write. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol am v'romamanu mikol lashon v'kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'titen lanu Adonai Eloheinu ba'ava shabbatot limnucha u'moadim l'simcha chagim uzmanim l'sason et yom השבת הזה ואת יום חג הפסח, חג המצות הזה, זמן חירותנו מקרא קודש זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי באנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת עם כל העמים. ומועדי קודשך באהבה וברצון שבת קודשך בשמחה וששון, מועדי קודשך באהבה וברצון בשמחה וששון הנחלתנו ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת וישראל והזמנים. And now we turn to the Aleinu and the memorial section. This is on page 586. Thank you. Please. $586.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה. שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונה, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים עמה, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום תשב אותה, לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, בשמיים עמך, ועל הארץ מתחתנו עוד.
of God, when all will turn to you in love, when corruption and evil will give way to integrity and goodness, when superstitions will no longer enslave our minds, nor the idolatry of thin ideas and cheap pleasures blind our eyes. And may all created in your image become one in spirit and one in friendship, forever united in your service. Then shall your realm be established on earth, and the words of your prophets fulfilled. The Eternal One will reign forever and ever. We turn now to page. Thank you. We now turn to page 593, top of the page. In nature's ebb and flow, God's eternal law abides. When tears dim our vision or grief clouds our understanding, we often lose sight of God's eternal plan. Yet we know that growth and decay, life and death, all reveal a divine purpose. God, who in our support in struggles of life is also our hope in death. We have set God before us and shall not despair. In God's hands are the souls of all the living and the spirits of all flesh. Under God's protection we abide, and by God's love we are comforted. O life of our life, soul of our soul, cause your light to shine into our hearts and fill our spirits with abiding trust in you. Today we remember George Jacobs from Bet David Santon, the grandfather of Leroy Barnes, Graham Balcom, father of Cynthia Rosen. Recently passed away, Henry Rothenberg, husband of Doris, father of Michael, Colin and Joan. Kathleen K. Fermo, mother of Rosemary, Jackie and David Fermo. Kathy Hesty, a mother of Richard Hesty. From Bet Menorah in Pretoria, Abram Horowitz, husband of May Horowitz. Recently passed away, Zelna Tate, Margaret Beatty and Essie Luns, friend of Ronan Giddy. From Beit David in Durban, Alexander Holtz and Victoria Arkin, Gavin Jacobson, husband of Sue and father of Calvin and Kendall Jacobson. We turn now to the Kaddish, and I'd like you all to recite the Kaddish together. There are many people who have nobody to say Kaddish for them. And I think that when we do this, if it's anybody particularly you know who doesn't have somebody to say Kaddish for them, think of them. Otherwise, just think of all those people who just have been abandoned and there's nobody around to say Kaddish for them. Jews and non-Jews. Together. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah b'olma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei l'chol Beit Yisrael b'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach l'olam olmei omaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dikudsha brichu Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechemata damiran b'olma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya v'chayim aleinu v'kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Aseh shalom b'imamav u'yaseh shalom aleinu v'kol Yisrael v'kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. Thank you. We can be seated now. Announcements straight off the page. The announcements from our your announcement guy, yeah.
So, thank you all for watching the service online, and thank you to the congregants that participated in the service. Please join us at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning for the Yom Rishon shel Pesach Shacharit service, which will be led by Rabbi David Benjamin, who's visiting us from Israel. There will be no youth service tomorrow, so children will be attending the main service at 10 a.m. The Sisterhood of Temple David is making a special appeal for donations of jam and peanut butter for their children's feeding project in Alex. These donations can be brought to the synagogue, or alternatively monetary donations can be made using the Sisterhood bank account, the details of which have been published in the weekly Adkan. We conclude the service with the singing of Shalom Aleichem on page 627, Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Yod, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bochim Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Yod, Melech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Nil Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Yod, Melech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Yod, Melech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Shalom. Chag Sameach indeed.
Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom, Shalom, Shabbat, Shalom. Shalom Umvorach, Shabbat, Shalom. Shalom Umvorach, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom.